Good morning, good morning. Testing 1, 2, 3. Is my audio working? Looks like it is. I just got back to my desk. It looks like I missed a pretty nice move down. It's taking my kids to school this morning, so just got in. All right, let's see what we got going on here today. Check the trading timer for news. Looks like we don't have any news until 1 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. At least no high impact news. Tomorrow, FOMC Waller speaks at 9 and 4 p.m. So not too much going on. If there's not too much going on, it usually means that today might be kind of a choppy sideways day. I guess we'll find out. Good morning. Hey, Jay Waz, how you doing? All right. See what we got going on here. So these are no longer bullish on the hourly. That's actually a delta squeeze scenario on the hourly. So I'm going to go ahead and flip that to bearish. The delta is gaining momentum under the confirmation line on the 15. So that is also bearish. And on the 5-minute, obviously, that delta is gaining a lot of momentum. And that is bearish as well. So we are in full bear mode right now, so we should be looking for shorts. However, I think we missed the big move here. I mean, the real move was, let's see. So see where the delta crossed on the confirmation line right here? And then it came back up and ticked down. That was the first entry. I wasn't around for that, but that would have been right there. And if you rode that all the way down, you'd be over 130 points right now. Your second entry for that would have been this tick down here from the red zone, or from the power zone's even better. So from the power zone, that would have been your entry, and you would have been at over 100 points, 110 points right now, if you held through that. So now that the bulk of the move has been made, and the delta is very close to this confirmation line down by the power zone, a long still might be a possibility over here. So we'll watch for that. That delta on the 5-minute, notice how as it was coming down, it really started gaining some strength and momentum down here. So it might be a while until a long presents itself. Yep, we are definitely in impulsive tick down territory for sure. So in order to go long, what I'll be looking for is this delta has to really thin out, and it has to start gaining a positive slope on it. Once we see that positive slope, what I want to see is I want to see the signal line close up above the delta, somewhere in here, come back down somewhere in here, and then tick up. If that happens and the delta still has this positive slope, that's my long. But until then, I'm going to be watching for short. So if the signal comes up somewhere in here and ticks down and the delta is still flat along the bottom, that'll be a short. But I feel kind of bad. I already missed the big move. So sometimes there's only one big move in the day, and then it just goes sideways after that. You know what? I should probably share the link to the stream in the group so people know that we're actually on here. So Jawaz, how was your weekend? Are you trading today? Awesome. Sounds like you had a busy weekend. Midterm due this week. Wow. It's been so long since I've been in school. I kind of forgot what that feels like. Yeah, my weekend was good. My kids had a hockey tournament. So my wife took my son to that hockey tournament over the weekend, and I kind of stayed home and got some work done. My daughter had hockey here, so I had to stay here with her. But yeah, I was working on some website stuff, got some website work done. Not a whole lot. Looks like this price action is still trying to push down. 10 years since undergrad, huh? Wow. I graduated in 2001. So for me, it's been quite a while. Delta on fives. I think you mean the signal. Yeah, flat along the bottom. Yeah, that is definitely a sign of big momentum downwards. And that delta is not tapering at all. So the sellers are still very much overpowering the buyers. Oh, not the signal? Oh, fat. I thought you said flat. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. But yeah, the signal's flat along the bottom and the delta is fat. Yes. I like fat deltas. Fat deltas are where it's at. The skinny deltas are dangerous. I don't like the skinny deltas. Getting a bunch of notifications through my bot right now. Let's see what's going on here. Bitcoin is still cruising. We're almost 83K. I had some monster trades over here earlier on DOT. It's about 40%. I think I'm actually out of... No, I'm still in the... So I got out of DOT. My bot got me out right here at 40%. And then when it ticked up from the power zone, it got me back in. This delta is thin and it's got a negative slope and the confirmation line's starting to head down. So if it ticks down, it's going to get me back out. It's kind of nice with the bots because I don't really have to worry too much about it. It just gets me in and gets me out where I want to get out. So let's see what else we have here. This ETH trade was pretty nice too. Got about 30% on that one. Yep, it's not going to stop. Yep, I agree with you. But I've learned my lesson in the past. If I get exit signals, I still got to take them because you never know when it's just gonna start cruising the opposite direction. But on the higher time frames, if you look over here, I mean, everything is super bullish. The deltas are nice and strong. That's what you want to see across the board. Strong deltas, and as long as you see that, you just keep letting the bot enter on your buy signals. So this current trade is up almost 9%. On the political time frames, yeah. Yeah. It is very bullish on the political time frames. You see how all these candles are just hugging the 8? That 8 SMA, I love it. Usually once it gets on one side of the 8, it stays there. And then once you start crossing above it, things are turning the other direction. Unless you're chopping, then it's on both sides, and that's when trading is not fun. So I don't think anybody else is here. I think it's just you and me, Jay-Waz. Maybe some people will join in. I posted the link in the group, but not sure if anybody has seen it yet. I should probably start scheduling these and for a certain time so people know that we're going to go live. You know, the good old days, just you and me. I don't know. I have a feeling, though, that we're going to start getting a lot more people in here once they start seeing how this thing works. Yeah, I wish I was short right now. There's no good entry. As soon as I get in, I'll just get run over. So, I mean, it's getting closer to being a long than a short. See, we're ticking up above the delta right now. I'm gonna change my view here. There we go. So we're ticking up above the delta. Delta is really close to that confirmation line, so but it's still way too early. If you look at the 15 and the 5, I mean, those just have so much momentum. You kind of be stupid to go long right here. So I'm still waiting to see that positive slope on the delta and to get above that confirmation line. That's what I need to see. And turn positive. But even if it does that, it might just turn around really quick because the momentum on the 5 is so strong. Can you go over what you would entice, or what would entice you into a long? I think I just did that, right? Did you write that before I was talking? But yeah, I want to see that delta get a positive slope to it, and I want to see it start to turn positive. I don't want to see it flat. I don't want to see it like this. like staying down in this power zone, because then it's probably just gonna tick down, and I mean then it's just too weak. You want to see that positive slope. You want to see it turn positive, and you want to see a tick up above it. You don't, I mean, the signal line could go below it. I mean, it could come up here and then come way down here and then tick up. I mean, that still might be a valid entry as long as the delta looks good, but that's another signal of weakness. So I don't prefer that. I prefer to do something more like this and get somewhere up there by the power zone and then tick down, and then depending on what the delta is doing, that might be another short opportunity once it gets up in there. But technically, I mean, this is the first tick up above the delta when the confirmation line is so close to it. So if you really wanted to be aggressive, you could have went long right there, which would have been right here. I did not take it. I'm going to wait. And you know, we're right in the middle of these two pivots. So this is a pivot line. This is another pivot line. So I can see it wanting to maybe have one more shot at this pivot line here, touch it, and then go. But see, now if you're looking at the delta, now it's starting to get that positive slope that I was looking for, and it's getting stronger. You can see the delta candle is gaining strength. So yeah, this tick up above the delta, that would have worked. I just didn't take it. Support here also coinciding with a tick up on the 5 from the power zone. Yep, it is. But that delta on the 5 is still pretty scary. It still has a lot of momentum, which tells me that there's still probably a short in here too. So this pivot line, we just touched it at the top, so this could be a little short opportunity here. However, I really don't like the shorts when the delta gets above that confirmation line. It's a little more of a gamble, but when the delta is so strong on the 5, it's probably just fine. So yeah, I might actually take a stab at this. We'll see. I took a stab at it. So I'm short from here. The delta was tapering a lot right there when this ticked down from the red zone. So we'll see if it plays out. But like I said, I don't really like these trades where the delta starts getting above the confirmation line, because that's your first signal that things usually want to start turning bullish at that point. However, those deltas on the 15 and the 5 are so strong that I figured it's worth a shot. It's not looking good so far. Yeah, I stopped out. Ah, you went long off the 8 there. Nice. So, yeah, the 1 and the 5 and the 15, they are in disagreement right now. The 1 is bullish because the delta is above the confirmation line. So, your best bet here is to wait for the signal to come back in the green zone and tick up to go long. But the 5 and the 15 are still very bearish, so that usually leads to some chop when there's disagreement between the time frames. And in order to go long, you want to see this delta stay on this positive trajectory. Bitcoin over 83K. Yeah. Yeah, it's still running. I think there was some Fibonacci resistance at like 84K. Thought I remember seeing that. Just got a lower high. If the delta was more flat, I definitely would short that, but it still has that positive slope to it, so not liking that for a short too much. Delta on the 1 is starting to turn negative. It's right there on the fence. It's flashing negative. I went short on the 8. 7. All right, we'll see if we can get some follow through now. Delta on the 1 is starting to roll over. Sellers are stepping up a little bit here. So ideally, we want that price to stay under that 8 SMA. If it starts closing above it, it's going to get messy. And we got to keep in mind that that delta is above the confirmation line. The confirmation line has a positive slope. So on the 1, this is actually bullish. So we want to keep a short leash on this thing. And if we get a buy signal, then either want to move stop to break even or exit. So Delta's starting to turn positive again. We are ticking up from the midline. I don't like those midline tick ups. But to be safe, I'm going to have to exit here if it closes this way. Yep, I'm out. So Lost a couple points on that one. Halfway to 84K already, huh? Yep. It's looking good. My dot entry is looking better. You know, I'm not even in this link trade anymore. I got out of that, so. How's ADA looking? I think it just got me out of ADA too, that last candle. So that was a small 1.5% win. Other thing that we have to keep in mind is we have a thin and alternating delta, which usually equals chop. So we'll put our chop box on there to be aware of it. Yeah, I wish I was here earlier to catch that big move. Might just chop sideways the rest of the day here. We'll see. See how the delta is still relatively weak? And the overall slope is more or less just flat. So flat, thin, weak delta, we're looking for tick downs from the red zone to short, which we're getting right now actually. I prefer a low or high, like this one with the red triangle, but normal tick down might be sufficient. Yeah, the one touched the 50. See that? Delta's getting a little bit of positive strength to it. See if the delta can break out of my chop box here. All right, the delta is breaking outside my chop box. It's looking more bullish. We did get a higher low here, but it was in the red zone. I don't like taking those in the red zone. And yeah, if you're new here and you have no idea what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the red zone and tick ups and tick downs and fat deltas and skinny deltas, download the playbook. Everything is listed in the playbook, my entire strategy. Entry setups, exit setups. The link is at the top of the banner there. See what this looks like on some higher time frames. So yeah, on like a 3-minute, it looks like a big bear flag. Let's see if it can break out of this, but the orange line here is the session VWAP, and the session for me starts at 6 a.m. Central Time. The blue line is the standard VWAP. I like using the session VWAP and the standard VWAP, but The session one, you usually get some really good moves off of it. And we also have the daily open, this yellow line right here. So will we come up and test the session VWAP and the possibly the daily open and come back down? We will see. But you could see what I was talking about when the delta was getting really close to crossing this confirmation line. I mean, that's when you want to start looking for longs. I just didn't really see a good long setup there, but you see how that the long is playing out. So everything about this was correct. When the delta is above that confirmation line, you want to look for longs. When it's below, you want to look for shorts. So here's the opposite over here. So see, the second that it closed under that confirmation line, that's when you want to start looking for shorts. So you had this really nice bullish move, and then boom, it just nails the top right there. I just wasn't around to take that trade. But then you just do the opposite over here. Even if that's the only setup that you look for, you can do really well. We just hit the session VWAP. We'll see if this provides some resistance. On the 15-minute, we did tick up from the lower power zone. The delta is tapering on it, so it could turn around here. But my guess is it'll probably do something more like this. Come up in this area, tick back down, and then continue the downtrend. Tick down from the power zone, setting up potentially. Yep. If the delta is strong when that happens, I will pass on it. But if it's tapering down, I'll take a short. Once the delta starts getting in the upper half, though, at that point, it's like it's hard to short those because that usually just wants to lead to a bigger move on the long side. Also notice that the signal line is flat along the top, sliding along the top. That's what was happening earlier when we were talking about that over here on the 5, how it was sliding along the bottom. That's usually indicative of a really strong momentum move. which makes it kind of hard to short that. Yeah, it's looking like it. Well, we made it through the session VWAP. Now we're at the daily open, almost to the regular VWAP. Halfway to 85K now? Sweet. That is crazy. That is crazy. Wonder how far it's going to run before it pulls back. We got our tick down from the power zone. Looks like it was tapering a little bit. I'd feel more comfortable if it was a lower high. So we'll see if it's see if it puts in a lower high on the signal line. Ooh. There we go. Yep. So it wanted to go up and touch that daily open. That power zone tick down was right on the money. See that right there? That's where it ticked down, right there. If you would have taken that, you could have pulled off. It's like it went 29 points. Did you take that one? Yeah, looking back at that one, at the point that it ticked down, and I said, yeah, it was tapering a little. Yeah, it was. And if you didn't get in right on the tick down, the next candle, it was definitely tapering. You could have entered on the 8 there, which is also that session VWAP line. I mean, that would have been a great short entry right there. right here. You can see that. Yeah, waiting for lower high. Yeah, I was too. Sometimes it just doesn't give you the perfect setup. So now, if you look at the delta, now we have a negative slope on the delta. Delta is above the confirmation line, which tells you to look for longs, but it's kind of hard to with a negative delta. Or a negative sloping delta, that is. And that was kind of a little bit of an impulsive move down. Created a fair value gap in there, so I could see it pulling back up into there and then trying to go lower. But then you go look at the 5, and we are ticking down on the 5. That delta's still weak over there. And the delta on the 15 is still has a lot of strength for the downside. You know, on the 5, you still have to kind of anticipate the possibility of this signal coming down and squeezing back up, like something like that. The delta still rising. So that could turn fairly bullish if it does that. Looks like we kind of went right up in there and just kissed that fair value gap right there. Wicked right to it. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. I don't really use that for trading, so I'm just gonna get rid of those. The cumulative delta tells you a lot more about what's happening right now with buyers and sellers. So see, I can see that we're actually starting to turn positive on the delta. We're ticking up from the green zone. It's actually a long opportunity right there. I know all the ICT people would probably be getting in on that fair value gap for short, but this is telling me this might be a long here. So I think I'm going to give that a shot if we tick up here. I'm in at 213.25. Now see, if you just ignore the higher time frames altogether and just focus on the one, you see that the confirmation line has a positive slope. The overall delta slope, like bird's eye view, the delta slope is positive. On more of a smaller time frame, it was negative here, but it is turning back around and going positive now. So that's where you want to get in. You want to get in on those turns right there. And with the delta above the confirmation line, that tells you that the odds of a long are better than the odds of a short as long as you're in this green zone here. And you want to see that delta just keep gaining strength. You want to see it get fatter and fatter. Fat deltas. That is where it's at. And all that means is that the aggressive buyers, meaning the buyers that are hitting the market buy button, are overpowering the aggressive sellers. So there's more aggressive buyers than there are aggressive sellers. So the idea is to get on the side that is more aggressive. So in this case, the buyers are definitely the aggressive side. So you want to go with the flow of them. You don't want to trade against them. Delta's actually looking pretty nice ramping up like this. If it was more flat, I would have probably exited right now. But because it's ramping up nicely, I think I'm going to end up waiting here. Probably wait for a tick down from the power zone. But it all depends on what the delta is doing. So I changed my exit strategy based off of what I'm seeing in the delta. And now the delta is tapering down quite a bit. We're ticking down from the red zone. So at this point, I'm going to start trailing wicks. So I move my stop up. Really want to see another tick up here above the delta for that to continue. I was trailing though, and I did get stopped out right here, so I made it's like 5.5 points. Probably stopped out a little too early. We'll see. There will be more. That delta's still pretty thin and weak. We did get a higher low there. Delta does have a positive slope, but it's weak. Weak on the 1, that is. It's actually gaining some strength on the 5. We're starting to get a lower high, and delta is turning negative. Took a stab at it. I'm short from 220.25. Taurus Trades, good morning. How you doing today? Are you trading? No, I don't execute trades in TradingView. I used to when I used what's it called, Tradeovate. But I'm in Quantower. I got another machine next to me where I enter my trades. I just do all my charting and everything inside TradingView. Yeah, Quantower. I really like Quantower. Sure beats Ninja Trader. I hated Ninja Trader. I had so many issues with Ninja in the past. Good morning. Yeah, if you're wanting to look at other options, definitely check out Quantower. It's free, and it's just really smooth and reliable, in my opinion. I think it looks a lot nicer too. All right, we are ticking up from the green zone. We might start to chop here a little bit. Might have to get out of this trade here. Well, now it's back down. We'll see where it closes. And it closed down, so I'm still in. It's about that time for it to start chopping, so I think I might have missed the big move for the day. Potentially. We'll see here. I exited on the close of that candle since we ticked up from the green zone. Lost, looks like 3.5 points. It still might go here, though. It looks like we're just creating a little bit of a wedge here, a little bit of a wedge pattern. Got lower high trend line, some higher lows. So when I consolidate a little bit here, we'll see. May I know why you go short when the delta is above the confirmation line and delta move in the middle? Well, that's a good question. If the delta is weak and we're getting lower highs from the red zone, I'll still short that. And see how the delta is really weak and it's rolling over right there. So it started to turn negative. It was really thin. When it's negative and thin, you want to short lower highs from the red zone. And if it's thin and positive, you want to long higher lows from the green zone. However, when it's thin and spotty, that's usually kind of a dangerous time to trade because it leads to chop. When it's chopping, you tend to be in and out a lot more, and it's just not it's not ideal. So you're right. Ideally, you should only be looking for longs if the delta is above the confirmation line. But I tend to trade a little bit more aggressively. So I'll still take those. But if you really wanted to be on the safe side, you would probably just wait for a long setup. You don't like to go into a trade when the delta is in the middle. You feel like the market is quite choppy. Yep. Yeah. I tend to agree with that. But more so what I'm looking for is just a thin and alternating delta. If this delta stays negative, it might just continue to gain strength throughout this move here. But we'll see. Thin deltas, the price action is really hard to predict what it's going to do because it can really kind of go either way. So it's during those times, it's better just to take a step back and stay out. You also tend to see that when you have these wedge patterns like this, where it's making lower highs and higher lows. You'll see it consolidate in there, and that can lead to some chop. Yeah, the one is still in disagreement with the higher time frames. And that also leads to some turbulence and choppy price action. Yeah, see how that the slope of the delta is really flat now? There's like hardly any slope to it. It's just kind of flat and straight across. That tells you the market's indecisive. It doesn't know which way it wants to go. You want to see a slope. either positive or negative. And to put the highest probability on your side, you want a positive slope on the delta along with a positive slope on the confirmation line. You want both of them to be together. And ideally, the higher time frames have the exact same setup. But a lot of the times, I only really look at the higher time frames if I'm looking to trigger like a bigger move. So if I see that there's a possibility of, let's say, triggering the hourly in a power zone, I know that that move could actually be quite big. Same thing on the 15 and the 5. And so if I see that, I typically will hold my trades longer. So I don't necessarily, I can trade against what's going on the higher time frames on the 1 minute because there's just gonna be a lot more opportunities there. It's just that if you're looking to trigger the bigger move on the higher time frame, I might hold it longer. If that makes sense. So it more affects my exit strategy as opposed to my entry strategy. And a lot of people think the higher time frames, introducing those in with this is confusing. And I agree, it can be confusing if you don't really know what you're looking for. And so in that case, I would just recommend ignoring the higher time frames altogether and just focus on the signals on the lower time frame. You're going to be much better off if you do that. The delta is really thin, but we're starting to get a little bit of a positive slope to it. You see that? It's like it wants to break outside of my chop box. We are getting a higher low in the green zone. That could lead to a bigger move to the upside here. And if you were more of an aggressive trader, you could take a long right there. I actually might take a stab at it quick. We'll see. But when it's kind of chopping like this, I tend to downsize a lot more just because it's more risky. But the signals are usually right more often than they're not. So even when it's chopping, which is why I jumped in this one. So we have a positive slope on the confirmation line. We have a positive slope on the delta. It's breaking outside my chop box. We have a higher low in the green zone. All of that goes in favor of the longs. Oh, I forgot to put my entry on here. I am in at 220.25. So the delta is ramping up there now, gaining some strength. It's a good sign. The 5-minute delta is almost to the point of crossing the confirmation line, so that's about ready to turn bullish here fairly soon. We still never touched that VWAP, the blue line. We almost did back here, but we just fell short of it. So I wouldn't be surprised if we go up there and touch that, at least. I would feel more comfortable if this delta had more strength to it. See how it's really thin still? It's got a nice positive slope to it, but it's thin. So if we tick down and close down, I'll probably exit early. But I'd like to see it just retest here and then make a run for that VWAP. Go ahead and move my stop to break even. Yeah, that delta is just really thin still. There's not a lot of aggressive buyer stepping in, so this might fall apart here. Yeah, I just got stopped out at break even. And looks like we barely touched that power zone right there. Delta's actually negative when it did that, so I could see that being a short opportunity there. Didn't quite get in that power zone though. I'd feel better if it got in the power zone. And we are now ticking down in the red zone on the 5-minute, and the delta is actually starting to turn negative, so this could be a bigger move to the downside here. I'll be right back. Get some more coffee. Yeah, that delta is really weak. So yes, it is above the confirmation line. It, however, it is really weak. Not something you want to see for longs. 85K, huh? Bitcoin? Nice. That is awesome. The deltas on Bitcoin are looking beautiful. You see how they're just really strong? They're not spotty at all. Very bullish on the daily, the 8-hour, the 4-hour. Hey, have you guys checked out this new indicator from Zeiierman? I just pulled it up this morning. I haven't really looked at it too much. Not really sure what this percentage is down there. It is called the Kalman Trend Strength Oscillator. So I'll probably end up taking a closer look at that a little bit later. Looks pretty cool. So we might get a tick up in the power zone here. But even if we do, there's a disagreement between the 1 and the 5. The 5 is telling you that it's a short. So I would probably wait for the signal to pull back up and then tick down. Maybe catch a momentum move to the downside. But do you see how the price is above the 8 SMA and then it's below, then it's above, it's below. It's chopping through the 8. That isn't really a market condition I like to trade in. Yeah, if you look at the 15, how we're ticking down right underneath the delta on the 15 right there. That could be a much bigger move to the downside. And I feel like the hourly hasn't even really got going yet. If you look up there, so there's still a lot of potential room to the downside if it wants to go. Everything's kind of lining up for it. So what we're looking at right here, this could be a impulsive breakout entry. All depends on if the delta candles are growing in size when this ticks down here. Nope, it was tapering. So it doesn't count. Now this candle, it was, Delta was getting thicker there a second ago. So there still might be an impulsive move here. Like I said, the 5 is it's all set up for it. Taken down from the red zone. Delta's turning negative. It's weak. It's not the best time of the day for a big move, though, unfortunately. Still could happen, but it's 10:30 Central. And with this delta tapering, and we're ticking up from the power zone, could be a long opportunity here. But again, it's sort of fighting with that 5 minutes, so it might just lead to more chop. The delta is tapering, though. It's not getting stronger to the downside. We also have to be open to the possibility that the signal on the 5 comes down like this, and we get a delta squeeze long on the 5, potentially. I took this power zone tick up here. I'm in at 207.25. I know it's fighting with the 5 minute, but the delta is tapering on the 1. It's still above the confirmation line. We're ticking up from a power zone, so if you're ever questioning the setup, always default to prioritizing the 1 over the higher time frames. The lower time frame is the one that really matters. The higher time frames are, like I said earlier, they're better for, I guess, determining your exit strategy more so than your entry strategy. Delta's starting to turn positive. That's what we want to see. Yeah, keep in mind, on the 1, everything's still bullish. Confirmation line still has that positive slope. And we're still above it. So you can't argue with that. It pulled up into that fair value gap up there and starting to reject off of it. Delta's starting to turn negative again. So we're just not getting the follow through that we needed. Ticking down in the green zone. So I just pulled the plug at break even. I'm going to go ahead and mark this off as chop because we have our alternating delta there. Like I said, not the best time of day to trade. Especially on a Monday with no news. But, you know, if you were only looking for 10 points, you would have got it. That one. So yeah, the 15 and the 5 still bearish. So we're still looking for a short setup if we can get one. Getting a little bit of bullish divergence here. We're making lower lows on price. And we're making higher lows on the signal. So yeah, if you were looking for 10 points here, you would have got it. If you were looking for 10 points here, you would have got it. If you're looking for 10 points here, definitely would have got that one. But if you're looking for bigger moves, like I am, then it's hard to get bigger moves when the price isn't moving. Question now is, can we get a momentum move down? Looks like we are gaining some strength on the delta to the downside. We are crossing back under the confirmation line. We are getting a lower high on the signal. So this so far satisfies the impulsive breakout entry in the playbook if we tick down here with momentum. We did get a little bit. I'm going to take a stab at it. I would have liked to see a lot more momentum in the delta, though. There's just not a lot going on there. This candle, this delta candle, I'll change my view so you can see easier. This delta candle right here, it was thicker than the previous one, but you want to see more of a momentum move kind of set in before that happens. And I mean, there's a little bit of one there, just not a whole lot. It's very choppy. Now we're getting a higher low already. Delta's starting to turn positive again. So yeah, after this, if this doesn't play out soon, I might just have to walk away for the day. Still in. I'm giving this one more chance here. The delta does have a decent negative slope to it now. It's under the confirmation line. We just need some follow through. On the 5 minute, it is rounding over. So the sellers are starting to step in. There's just not a whole lot of them. Yep, scalping environment for sure. Unless we could trigger one of these impulsive breakout moves here, and then we could be cruising. We just need somebody to blow on it. Blow it down. Just give it a little push. ADX is orange? Yeah, I figured. It's pretty choppy right here. Like I said, if this doesn't play out, I'm probably just going to walk away. Look at that negative slope on the delta, though. It's thin, it's spotty, but it has a slope to it. And slopes are usually leading. It usually points in the direction that it's going to eventually go. Kind of a leading indicator if you look for that. Come on. Just need some follow through. There we go. Now the delta's starting to get thicker. Come on. Somebody has to push it down. Put in a big sell order. Somebody. Now it's thinning out again. Good. Glad you like it there, J-Waz. Yeah, I was curious how this would go, and, you know, I just ended up stopping out on this trade. I'm usually not much of a talker, so I didn't know if I'd be able to do this or not, but if you guys think this is helpful, then yeah, I'll probably keep doing it. I'm not as entertaining as some of the other YouTubers, but I don't care much about that as long as we're making money. So now it just so happens that Friday and today ended up being kind of crap days for trading. So, but they'll get better. I mean, J-Waz has traded with me for quite some time now, so he could probably attest to how well these setups usually work. Most days for me are green days versus red days, but now I'm having to take my kids to school in the morning. The bus driver ended up quitting, so I ended up getting a later start than normal, and so I tend to miss the bigger moves in the morning, like all of this. I mean, that would have changed my whole day right there if I would have caught that. But by the time I started trading, it's just been sideways nastiness ever since. So, yeah. So if we keep doing this, you guys will see, like, these setups usually play out pretty darn well. It's just that we're kind of dealt a bad hand right now. Now watch, after I stopped out, this thing will probably it'll finally follow through here. See, the delta's starting to get thicker. But there's only so much pounding that you can take. And then you have to kind of just take a step back and be patient and wait for the next setup. So yeah, I want to see if this actually plays out here, even though I'm not in it. But and as I was saying before, you know, if you're looking for smaller moves, I mean, you're going to hit a lot more of those trading this way. It's like earlier, you know, 10 points here, 10 points there, a lot more than 10 there on this one. You could have got, it's like 25 points. If you would have taken one of the, like this where it touched the green zone here, if you would have taken that long, or took the 8 long, which is also detailed in the playbook. So you wait for the tick up first, and if you question it a little bit more, you just put your entry on the 8 instead. Usually get a better entry that way. And if you look here, that would have been a perfect entry on the 8. And if you take it until the tick down from the power zone, it's at 9:40 a.m., you would have got 50 points out of that one. I mean, there's opportunity all over the place. It's just, when you're dealing with sideways chop, there's not really much you can do. The best thing to do is to just take a step back, wait for the market to kind of reset itself, put in a big move, and then it'll start flowing again. Well, you know, it is lunchtime. It's lunchtime in New York anyway. Not quite lunch for me. It's 11 o'clock, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and end it here. But yeah, I will, if you guys think this is helpful, I'll keep doing it. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll try to get back a little bit sooner and try to catch the open if I can. It's kind of hard doing that, taking the kids to school, because I usually don't get back until 8:35 or so. Look at now this. Now is it going to play out? Now that I'm about to jump off? We're starting to get a lower high on the signal. Still a spotty and choppy delta though. So yeah, I'm not going to touch it. All right, guys. I think I'm going to just cut it here, and we'll be back tomorrow. So I will check you guys later. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.